Hello, it's Michelle from C&C Designs. I'm an independent Stampin' Up! Demonstrator in New Zealand, and I'm bringing you another global monthly video hop. So this month the theme is 3D projects. So in the description below my video you will find links to the other demonstrators around the world that are doing projects based on this theme. So I don't know what they're doing, but everybody's got a 3D theme to the projects they're doing for December. And so I am going to show you some little lanterns, show you how to make these cute little lanterns. I'm going to change it up a bit, so you come out with a slightly different one this time. In the description below, besides having the links to the other videos, which you should go and have a look, because I'm sure you'll find some really fabulous projects to do. I will also list all the products used for this project, so you can see them, and if you want to purchase them, contact your Stampin' Up! Demonstrator. If you're in New Zealand and don't already have a Stampin' Up! Demonstrator, I'd love to be yours. You can go to my website, michellecritchley.stampinup.net, to order anything from me. Be aware this close to Christmas, there's no guarantee it will arrive before Christmas, but you know, it's goodies that you can use all year round. And if you want to see some more details on this and other projects, you can go to my blog, papercraftaddiction.blogspot.co.nz. So let me show you the items we're going to use today. So I came up with this lantern. Now, unfortunately, it sits like that, which you can't really view it properly that way. But all four sides are fairly similar, same die cut. And I've embossed the words. And this one will fold flat, so it will fit in an envelope for mailing. And what you do is you just use a little battery-operated Tealight, light it up, have it sitting in the bottom. So if it was sitting on the table, it kind of gives you that look. And this is using the new gold vellum that's in the holiday catalog. This one here, slightly different, using the same die set. So the die set I'm using for both these cutouts is called the Giving Gifts dies. And it has these cute cutouts for various holidays, like we've got the Christmas one with the Santa, the reindeer. We've got the ornaments shown here, snowflakes for winter holidays, and some pumpkins, as well as some extra little dies to cut out extra embellishments. So this one here, I also used the die, this die here, which is part of the pretty Pillowbox dies. So if you cut one of these, you can fold it up and make a Pillowbox project. But I've used it twice to create the lantern slightly differently. So this one I've only die cut out two sides, used the white vellum, and I put a base on there, but when it sits up it has a curved top. And for this I've used one of these, you twist it and it's one of these watertight floating Tealight candles. So if you pop it in there, that's why I put a base to it. When it's sitting on the table, this Tealight changes colors. So you can have that sitting on the table or in your windowsill, and you have these beautiful different colors coming through. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make this type of box with that die, but I'll tell you what you need to make that box, which folds flat. And the one I make this time, I'm not going to put a base on it, so it will fold flat as well for easy mailing. So let's turn this off. So for the first one, if you want to make one like this, just a rectangular one, for these dies, I cut the cardstock 21.5 centimeters long, and then I scored it at every 5 centimeters, so there were 4 score marks in it. And then I die cut in each rectangle the same die. That's the snowflake die. So I die cut that in each rectangle, and then I ran the whole thing through an embossing folder. Now I used last year's snowflake embossing folder, so you can see the different little snowflakes on it. That was from last year. And then after that, I just folded it and glued. When you score it at 21.5 centimeters, you have a half a centimeter left over, which is nice and skinny. So I glued the vellum in place and then glued it together to make the box. So the rest of making the box, besides the cutting of the paper, is going to be exactly the same as what we're going to do here. So I'll set that one aside. So for this, I'm going to change it up slightly. I used the thick Whisper White cardstock, and then I embossed it using the Timeworn Type 3D embossing folder. Now this has some interesting images. It's got some like words that you can barely see, and it's like it's worn out. So for here, at a distance, you can't actually tell that there's words on there. But I'm going to use the Snowy White Vellum. I think that's the name of it. Yep, Snowy White Vellum. Comes in a pack of 2 sheets, 12 by 12 inches. So for this, I've used the full 12 inches lengthwise, and I've cut it at 4.5 inches, which is also 11.5 centimeters wide. And that way I can die cut 2 of these. So I'm going to go ahead and die cut 2 of these. So if I put it that way down, and then when I die cut the next one, it will have enough room for 2 to go on there. So I'm going to die cut that. The other thing I've already cut, and these measurements are the same whether you're doing this one or this. For this one here, you will need 4 pieces of vellum. For this, because we're only doing 2 sides, we only need 2 pieces because the other 2 sides are glued together. Okay? But the vellum that you need is 2, or if you want 4 for the other one. They are 5 centimeters by 9 centimeters. Now if you're using a different die, you can get away with a different size, but see how I've made sure that it's about 1/2 centimeter all around from the size of the die, because that's how I'm going to stick it down with my tear and tape. These pieces here didn't need to be as big because see that die is smaller, but you need to have them so you can stick them on the other side of your cutout. Okay, so I will die cut that piece, and but before I do that, I'm going to put some words onto the vellum. Now you could stamp on it, but the ink might not stick unless you use something like the StazOn. So I find stamping on it with and then embossing it, heat embossing it, makes the words stand out, as well as the fact that I want to have the white words. But for this one, I'm going to have it going that direction for the new box I'm going to make. So I want to stamp the words the other way around. So one thing you need to be aware, the words I'm using here actually, I'll tell you, that's from the Sweet Little Stocking set, the words Very Merry. But whatever words you choose, just make sure that you've got enough room to fit where it's not going to be covered up with your die cut. And I'm going to put it down at the bottom this time. So if I want to be sure of placement, I could just gently put the die over the top, and then I can look where to stamp. But I don't want to stamp with the die there because it might get in the way, but that gives me some idea of where to stamp my words. And I see there's a bit of a shadow going on there. So I'm going to stamp my words there in Versamark, and then I'll heat emboss them in white. So just ink up your stamp with some Versamark, which is clear and sticky. So you can turn it over, and using a bit of light you can see whether it's sticky or not. And then just stamp it roughly where you want it to be. And so I will put it right about there. Straight down, straight up. And then I'm going to use the white embossing powder on it. And just sprinkle some embossing powder over the top. And I just give it a bit of a flick to get any extra off. So that's all nice and white. So I'm going to go away and I'll heat that with the heat tool, and it will melt to give me the lettering. So I will do that in the die cutting and be right back. Okay, so I have heat embossed the words, and just to let you know, one side of this vellum is not shiny, it's just plain, and the other side is the shiny gold, so make sure you do it on the correct side. And I'm just going to have the words on one side of it, and I've gone and I've cut this Pillowbox die twice, so we end up that sheet. I cut 2 of them out, and that was the snowy white velvet. Now when they come out, they do get some marks like that because of the pressure, but don't worry because we're going to emboss on it, so that will get rid of those lines. So we'll put that aside for now. And before we do any of the embossing, in order for the box to stand up, because you end up with the curve there, you'd have a curve at the bottom, we want to score. And you want to score before you emboss it, so you know where the lines are, and then you might need to score again after embossing just to make sure you can fold on those lines. So the easiest way to do this, hopefully you can see, this is my cut and score tool. Simply cut. So on here, let me see if I can zoom in. Oh, there I can. Aha. Okay, so on your die cut, on one side of your die cut, you want to score a straight line straight across there, so you can fold it down and make one side flat. So you want to put where the groove comes together. So if you have a close look, see how you kind of have a point there, and in the center and on the other side, right where I'm pointing. Okay, so you want to make sure the point is right in your, what would be your cutting line. Let's move this over slightly more. There we go. And don't use the dark piece because that's the cutting piece. You want to use the light gray piece because we're scoring it only. And as long as that's in there, and then you can check the bottom, it's lined up and the grooves there as well. So as long as you got that lined up, and if you do it this way, you can have the flat bit butted up against the top. Go ahead and using your scoring tool, score a line. So see, now we have a line there. Okay, and you want to do it on both of them. And you would want to do it on the same side because they're going to be glued together. So, whoop. So doing it the same side for the second piece, so that's not scored and this side is scored. So whichever side you choose, make sure it's the same side on both pieces. And line it up where that groove is using the gray scoring piece. Just go back and forth a couple times. And that gives you a score, which is going to give you your flat bottom for your box. Now let me see if I can get, there we go. Aha! First time I've done that in a video. Good to know how to do that. So you can fold those over just to make sure you know where they are, because they're going to flatten out when I run it through the embossing machine, which I'll be doing twice. And the same with your other score lines, so you might want to just give it a bit of a gentle press where those score lines are. Not the top grooves, just those side ones and the two at the bottom. And if you do this now, then it's easier to find where to fold it after you run it through with the die cutting and the embossing. If you don't, you might lose those lines and it's more difficult to find later on. Okay. So now, this is how the box is going to be put together. So we're going to put that side there and we're going to glue that side there. So the side, opposite sides are going to have the scalloped edge, and the plain side is going to be die cut. And the score part will be the bottom, the part that we scored. So that's going to be the flat bottom. So having your pieces that direction, you can then die cut in that section. Now this one, as I said, I did the die that direction. This time I want to have it going down so it looks like the snow's falling down, which is also why I put the words at the bottom. So on these full sections, you want to do your die cutting, but you want to have it up slightly. You don't want it too far to the bottom, because if it's too far to the bottom, you'll see the base of your candle, and you want the light to shine up, but you don't want it too far up the top because it will be too thin there. And also you need room for your gold to fit. So the gold's going to go right about there. So I'll slide it down slightly, because the gold piece will be stuck behind it. Okay, so I'm going to run that through the die cutting machine, that direction, and I'm going to run both of them. So I'll do it on this one and I'll do it on that one. Sometimes, because this white vellum is quite thick, has a backing, you might need to run it through a couple times because it's so intricate where the snowflakes are. And the piece that pops out, that leftover piece, I'm going to use the extra snowflake that comes with the dies, and I'm going to cut a piece out there. I won't cut it at the same time I'm putting it through because the metal is too close, but once that piece is taken out, I will use that die and use that scrap piece to cut some spare snowflakes. Okay, so now I'll bring the gold in so you can see. I've die cut those the snowflake images there, and because I ran it through twice, it just falls away. You can use your die cutting brush to knock those pieces out. And the piece that was left in here, that big piece down there, after I die cut it, I then use the other snowflake die and cut out a little snowflake from there. But you have to do it after you've die cut it. You've left with these big pieces here. If you're doing the rectangular one, it has 4 sides, so you'll do that on all 4 sides, the die cutting, and then you can end up with 4 little snowflakes as well. Okay, so that's all the same for both projects. Now the next step, whether you're doing this project or the other one, is you want to emboss each section before you glue things together. So you could just leave this plain. It's nice and beautiful and soft. It's so soft. But as you see, some of those folds got pushed out when I ran it through to do the die cutting. But now it's time to do the embossing. So we need to emboss it before we stick it together. And so you can emboss it either way. So if you press it in that way, the letters are going that direction, but you can't really see the words very well, so it doesn't really matter which way you put it in. But if you do want the words to be seen and you want them to be the right way up, make sure that the word Stampin' Up is on the front, and you put your piece in with the bottom facing the opening in this direction. So if you do pick up any of those letters or words, they will be going the right direction. So you have to run both pieces through the machine. And when you emboss, you make sure you go the folded side through, and sometimes you have to change the sandwiching of your plates depending on how thick the embossing folder is. So I'm going to emboss both those pieces and then we'll put it together. So this would be exactly the same as for doing this. The difference is this one here is one big long piece. So what you would do is you would put part of it in, run it through, and then put the other half in and run it through. So here we go. And look how beautiful that is. So that is the Timeworn type embossing folder. And as I said, you can't really read the words very well. It just gives it a bit of texture. I mean, it does have a lot of texture because it's the velvet, But also, since we ran it through again, you do kind of lose those, can't really see your score lines very well, which is why you want to do them beforehand, because that way we can easily find them, since it's been run through the machine twice, once for the die cutting and once for the embossing. But also, doing that, you lose, you don't really see that really heavy lines that we originally had when the pieces first came out. Okay, so we got those two, and I'll just gently press it on the lines so I know how it's going together. And then turn it over. If you're not familiar with the vellum, it's vellum one side and it's plain on the other, which is great because sticking things onto vellum is not easy, but you can easily stick it onto the back. So now we're going to put our gold vellum. Oh, that was velvet, not vellum. Sorry, wrong word. We're going to put our gold vellum on the back, and the easiest way to do that is with tape. And so I did line my words up there. It's sticking out a bit at the top because of where the words are, but that's okay. I can trim that off afterwards. So using tape to stick it down is the easiest. Because if you use liquid glue, it might seep through and get onto your vellum, and that's not a good look. So put the tape where you want the project to go, with the vellum to go, not on the vellum itself. And that way we know it's going to be in the right spot. And tear and tape is just that. You stick it down and tear it off. That's why the name is tear and tape. So stick it down and tear it off. If you don't have nails to tear it with, you can just use something on top of it, like a block. Hold the block over there, and then you can just tear up against the block. Not sure if you can see that, but I do have nails, so I just tear it against the nails. It saves on you having to stop, get your scissors out, and cut it. So that's the great thing about tear and tape. It doesn't have to be exact. So we'll stick the next one in place. Close to the edge, but not over. Just enough to hold it in place, because nobody's really going to try to pull this apart, hopefully, unless you give it to a child. And they might try to pull it apart if they're very young. But this is a great project. I've made lanterns lots of different times in the past with different dyes and vellum, etc., different products. It's a great one to use with any project. You can change it up for the theme. So as you can see there, I've just got my tear and tape around the edges. And then as the name, it's really easy to pull off the back. If you have difficulty with that, a sharp object, just like the edge of your scissors, if you just kind of rub it gently around the edge, it just pulls the strip off. If you have a little pokey tool like our take a pick tool, you can do that as well. But the best thing is if you've pressed it down enough, it will peel right off. That's why I love Stampin' Up! Tear and tape. It's so easy to peel off. Now let's see how the words look on here. This way, I will put it this way so I can see where my words are. And stick it so my words are nice and visible. Okay, and then I'm just going to snip off these edges that you don't want to see, because that's inside. Now you can look into it and you'll be able to see that, but it doesn't really matter that much. So some of the tape might be sticking a bit further out. Doesn't really matter because we're not putting anything inside there to get stuck to. If you are concerned about that extra tape sticking out the edge, you can use one of the tape remover erasers or put some powder on it, like the Embossing Buddy or something else, just to take the tackiness off. But this project doesn't matter. You could cut your tear and tape skinnier if you want as well, but for this project it doesn't matter that much. So this one I can lay it further down because there's no words on it, and I just don't want it to be too far down where the fold is, but I do want it to cover everything. So you don't want it too far down from the fold. The same with your die cutting. Be aware where your fold is, and when you die cut, make sure the fold's not pressed up. So see, I have far less sticking out the corners at the top. But if you're doing the rectangular project, this size of vellum should fit perfectly inside each of those little rectangles. There we go. So take those little bits off. So there's the outside of it. And now we just need to stick it together. So when we stick it together, we want to make sure that the edges are going to come together nicely. So the best thing to do is holding it together like that. So we don't want any adhesive in that open part there, because we wouldn't be able to open it. So the best thing is just to put a little bit of line of glue around that area there and then around here. So I'll show you. So lining up the two pieces, and we'll just put a bit of glue around the edges and then around that edge there. Don't want it too thick because you don't want it to ooze out to that open spot. Fold it over, give it a press. Now this being vellum, as I said, velvet, we're sticking the paper onto the velvet, and sometimes it doesn't stick very well. So what you can do is you can use one of your blocks to put some pressure on it, just to hold it in place. And that also keeps you from getting sticky fingers. Okay, and then the next one should line up perfectly because they're both the same size. So again, we want it just on the inside here. Hopefully you can see where I put that, and then just around that edge there. So let me just pick it up so you can see. So I've got glue around that inside and around that edge. I don't want a bunch of glue here because that's an open part, okay? So just fold that over in place. And then if you want, you can just stick a block on top. Just make sure your block's clean. You don't want to put a block on there that might have some ink on it. That would not be good. The other thing is you can color the velvet. You can put splashes of ink, spray some ink on there. Use your pens to color it if you'd like. Okay, so there. So this one I'm not going to put, that one I had a bottom on. This one I'm not going to put a bottom on because that way you can fold it flat for shipping. So it can go in an envelope like that. But for use on the table, you want to push those edges up, and then you pop it down and put your Tealight in there. So on the table, let's see if I can, I'll do it that way. There we go. So on a table, you would be able to see it glowing essentially like that. And so you got that nice decorative edge there, and then you have that other side glowing and that decorative edge. So you could stamp on both sides if you want. Oh, I forgot to add the final embellishments. We're not done yet. Our snowflakes. Where were my spare snowflakes? I cut the extra snowflakes and I forgot to put them on. Nearly forgot the snowflakes. In fact, I threw them away. When I cleaned my table off, I accidentally dumped them in with the rubbish. So our extra little snowflakes, forgot about them. So we want to pop those up. Now the really skinny in the center. So even a mini dimensional is going to be seen unless you cut it down. So the best thing I recommend is a glue dot. So what you can do with your glue dot is you can actually roll up your glue dot. If you rub on it, you can roll it up slightly. You can use your fingers or you can use a tool, but you roll it up into a bit of a ball there. And that gives it a bit of height, just like a dimensional would. Stick it where you want it to go. And I think I will pop that guy there. And then another one. So take your glue dot, roll it up. Roll it in your fingers if you want. And stick it in the center. You could do a couple glue dots if you want it to be higher. And I'm going to just pop that there. And then some embellishments. So my original one, I had the little, you see the gold embellishments on there? That is the wonderful gems. Come in the red and the gold. This one I thought I might just use our normal rhinestones. So let's see. I do have a lot of rhinestones. I use them lots. Great thing is you can actually color them. See, those ones are colored. So pick them up with your pick a tool, which I'm not sure where mine is at the moment, or your scissors, and pop them on. I think I might, yeah, pop that there. Give it a bit more shimmer. So I thought I'd try those just to give a different dimension to it. So pop a few of those there, and then the other side, I'll pop a few on there. You really should get this velvet. It is so soft and just beautiful. Great to work with as well. Let's try a big one there. And then a little one over there. Okay. So there you have it. So we've got some embellishments. We've got an embossed, the velvet, which is so soft. And then we have a Very Merry at the bottom. And so you can do your tea light. Just shining out from the bottom there. Or looking at it that way. So there we go. Get it shining that way. So there you go. So that is this style with a different die cut and using the velvet. This is with the thick basic white cardstock, made the same way, but then I cut a piece of white to stick in the bottom. So if you're going to do that, then just take and measure up the 4 sides. So in this case, they came to about 5.5 centimeters is that width there. So cut your piece 5.5 centimeters square or slightly less than that, so you don't have to worry about the edges. Slip it in there and glue that shut if you want to have a bottom to it. And this is the original one. That's just a rectangle. The difference with not having the bottom is you are able to fold it flat for mailing. So these two can be folded flat to mail. This one cannot because it has a bottom in there. So it's up to you how you want to do it and which kind of design. But you can make lots of different ones, different holidays of the year, simply by using the gift-giving dies. We've got our pumpkins, our bubbles, our snowflake, and this one has Santa and his reindeer and other little embellishments. So it's a great die set to use. And if you want to make it quick and easy, I recommend using the pretty Pillowbox dies, which also have some extra embellishments. So you can do some flowers and other embellishments on that die as well. So thanks for watching, and give me a thumbs up if you enjoyed that. And make sure you click on the links that I will have below to go see some of the other demonstrators 3D projects for this month. And I hope you have a very happy holiday and a wonderful new year. And feel free to go to my site if you'd like to purchase any of these products or to get some other fabulous ideas on my blog, this project and other ones that I've done throughout the years. Okay, thanks so much. Bye-bye.